The Ink and Paint Club podcast is intended for mature audiences only, so don't tell your parents! Listener discretion is advised. So what's going on?
No, we're just talking about Stevie.
The stew balls, the thing you don't like.
Wait, what?
Steven Universe.
Oh, yeah, fuck that show.
You're listening to the Ink and Paint Club podcast, your weekly home for animation reviews and discussions.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Ink and Paint Club podcast. My name is JD, and joining me, as always, is Kyle.
Yo.
And Matt.
JD, can I ask you a question?
I know what we're gonna do. Let's go.
Yeah, what's up?
What is a man?
He's a horrible pile of secrets.
It's a miserable pile, you cretin.
Motherfucker, I have not played Symphony of the Night, so shut up.
I haven't either, and I know how the quote goes.
Well, I'm not a fucking nerd.
Oh, ooh, ouch.
But as Matt alluded to, we are talking about Castlevania Season 3, now available on Netflix. Something I feel like they didn't really advertise all that well. Like, 2 weeks ago, they were like, hey, Castlevania Season 3 is going to be out. I'm like, cool. That's awesome.
I feel like that's been kind of a trend recently, at least like with their animation stuff. They seem to like just do like a trailer like just a few days before it's going to come out, or like a week before it comes out, and then like they drop it. Like,
I guess.
Because I feel like it was a little bit like that with Glitch Text too. I didn't recall them.
Well, I mean, the crew of that show was going crazy when it was coming out. So,
well, yeah, that was a whole other separate thing. But
right.
I did want to make note. This is like our, and it didn't intend for this. It just happened this way. This is like our 5th video game animated thing in a row.
Yeah. We did Dragon Quest, we did Sonic, we did Pokemon,
Glitch Text,
and now we're doing Castlevania. It's been a video gamey time around here.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a weird realization.
Good bit of time for video game adaptations and video game related things, I guess.
What a time to be alive.
Yeah.
We reviewed the first 2 seasons of Castlevania, I think back when season 2 had come out, but now we have a 3rd season, and I'll say I did like this season because I kind of liked how it was a little bit of a smaller story than the last 2 seasons were. Because like the last 2 seasons have been all about like, you know, Dracula's amassing like this giant plan, and he's gonna like enslave all the humans or kill all the humans or something, and you know Trevor, Sypha, and Alucard have to go and stop him and stuff, and that was great, and I liked it. But in this season, it's kind of a lot of smaller stories, just kind of like bouncing back and forth. And I kind of like that. Not every story is as strong as the next one, but I kind of liked it. It was a little smaller, a little slower pace, kind of give you a little bit of a breather from the last season. I don't know how you guys felt. Tell us how you really feel, Kyle.
I didn't think it was as strong as the other seasons. Even especially with the big climax at the end, I didn't feel like it was all that strong. But wasn't the things like a giant ball of people? I think that's one of the bosses in
it's a Legion, I believe.
Castlevania. There you go. Yeah. But I know that I read that the showrunner or whatever never played a Castlevania game.
Yeah, I read that too, and I had no idea about that. But yeah, Warren Ellis, I guess, never played a Castlevania in his life. So how the fuck did he end up on show running the fucking show? Like it's amazing to me. I mean, he's doing a great job with it, but clearly there's people on the staff that have played the games. So I guess whatever influence they have on it's doing pretty well for him.
And I think that's okay as long as you've got people on the staff that are familiar with the source material. The head runner doesn't necessarily need to be there. Because, I mean, the Castlevania show, for I don't know what reason, is based on Castlevania 3. I don't even know if that's like one of the more popular ones, I guess. I don't know. I don't know where Castlevania games rank in hierarchy.
Basically, people just always talk about Symphony of the Night, and then
Yeah.
like there's all the original like 2D ones. Like people bring up either like the original Castlevania or like Rondo of Blood, which is what Richter's from. Well, also from Symphony of the Night, but and then like the DS ones, like was it like Aria of Shadow and like some of the other ones.
Yeah, apparently everyone says the DS and the Game Boy Advance ones are like really good. I've never played them. I played, I think, like most of Rondo of Blood. I've played Castlevania 4. I had the original Game Boy Adventure game.
Oh boy,
that game is a hot mess.
from
Playing
what
it
I've
nowadays.
seen,
Yeah. But what I was gonna say.
Problem,
Go ahead, Kyle.
well, the problem with this series too is the fucking timeline's all fucked up as well. You have some things that were retconned. You have some things that don't exist anymore. All this kind of shit. So,
well, see, that's what I was gonna say. So this show is ostensibly based on Castlevania 3, but I don't feel like it's beholden to like the game's timeline and lore and stuff. It's kind of making up its own thing because you're getting. I mean, you have the main three characters from Castlevania 3, but you're also getting characters from like later on in the series. Like the character in this season, Saint Germain, who's voiced by Bill Nye, which was kind of a cool.
that was I didn't realize that until like after the fact, but it
was
pretty
weird.
cool.
I like he first showed up and he started talking. I was like, that kind of sounds like Bill Nye, and then I watched the credits, like, holy shit, it is. But he's from like one of the PS2 Castlevania games, so they're kind of just picking and choosing what they want, and I'm honestly kind of okay with that.
Well, it's specifically in Saint Germain's specifically for him, I know that I read up on this, like he is actually like a older like folklore character related to like the vampire myths and stuff. Like he's not specifically from Castlevania.
Right.
Like he's just something that, like Castlevania took, Dracula's whole thing in the same way they took like Saint Germain's whole thing. So that's not exactly like, something that they really need to adhere too much to as far as the Castlevania relation to that character.
Yeah, and honestly, I kind of go back and forth on when you're adapting something, how accurate it needs to be. And I guess for me, who's not like a huge Castlevania fan, like I like Castlevania fine. I'm not particularly great at them. But I'm like I said, I'm kind of glad that they're kind of doing their own thing and they're not sticking to like, Castlevania lore. Because I was wondering, it's like, okay, well, Castlevania 3, the story of that's wrapped up. But they're still using the same characters, and it's like, well, each Castlevania has a different like protagonist, so it's like, are they going to like move on to like other Belmonts later in history, or what are they going to do? And I kind of like that they're like, taking bits and pieces, nods that fans are going to recognize, and throwing them into this story, which is it's completely its own thing, and then honestly, I'm kind of okay with that.
There was part of me that was kind of hoping that they were going to take an approach like with JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, they do like a sort of generational thing where they do like a specific era and then like they flash forward in time to like the descendants and stuff, but they're still fighting like the same villains or like it's related to that. So I had a feeling like before we got confirmation that season 3 is going to involve like all the same characters from the first 2 seasons, I was thinking that we are going to see like a new Belmont or something like that, which would have been cool to see. But yeah, part of me is glad that they are kind of still keeping to this, because I think like what they said is like been a month since the end of the season 2. So not much has happened in that time.
Other than Alucard's apparently losing his mind.
Yeah, with like the little puppets and stuff, which I looked up. There's a site. Apparently, those are originally supposed to be like human-like radishes he found or something. It was like radishes or turnips. I can't remember, but I saw the scene. But honestly, I'm glad they went with like the little like puppets that he made himself. Like,
yeah, I will say one problem I've kind of had with this series is the voice acting. If only because it doesn't sound like traditional voice acting. I don't know really how better to explain that.
You know what? I understand what you mean, but I feel like the voice acting is suited for the specific dialogue that they choose to put in the show. And I meant to bring that up earlier when we were talking about Warren Ellis. I'm pretty sure Warren Ellis is pretty much on the show because I know that he's got to be the one that's writing that dialogue, just from like what I know about like what he does in comics and stuff. Like he's absolutely like he's the driving force behind just like basically all of Trevor's dialogue and like any vulgarity in the show and just like
right. I mean, I do want to say that the show is well written. I do like the writing in it, but just some of the vocal performances. My big standout with this, and I wonder if other people who watched this season had this problem, is when Alucard's at his in his kitchen, having lunch or whatever. Which I want to get back to that kitchen in a second. He's like, making up voices for his Trevor and Sypha dolls. I had to look up like a GIF set of that scene just to understand what he was saying in that long rambling paragraph. When he's making up what the Trevor doll is saying, I had no idea what he said. Like it's just so long and rambly, and like the way he said it, like it just sounded like mumbling to me, and I couldn't understand it.
I had subtitles on, so it wasn't a huge deal.
We're not talking about Donald Duck here, JD.
It's just I don't know. It was just a weird way they have like a very kind of low muted kind of way of talking, and sometimes some of the dialogue gets lost like that. But
that's kind of just how Alucard talks too. He's like very soft, like spoken dude.
Well, I don't know. Like Trevor kind of grumbles a lot, so like some of his dialogue gets lost. Sypha, like I never have a problem understanding because she's light and bubbly, so it's like she's always like really projecting a lot. So I don't know. It's probably just me.
And they fucking...
Dude, my God. There is so much... Everyone is boning this season.
Well, very specifically, the fucking second to last episode is literally the one note I wrote down for episode 9 is just fighting and fucking. That is the whole episode. It's just fighting and fucking, literally for 30 minutes, just fighting and fucking. Like I don't think there's much dialogue at all. There's probably like less than a page words of fucking dialogue.
It's bouncing between Trevor and Sypha fighting a demon. It's bounces between Isaac fighting a whole city of fighting a legion of brainwashed people, and then it's cutting to Hector fucking a vampire, and then like Alucard having a 3-way, and it's just cutting between all 4 of these for about a half hour.
It was crazy.
Sending some mixed messages, I think.
I feel like how people must have felt like when they were watching like Game of Thrones or something like.
It's weird because I watched this with Mel, and Melanie was straight up saying it's like this is getting real Game of Thronesy up here. Which, like, I've watched bits and pieces of Game of Thrones. Like, yeah, I can kind of see that a bit.
There's a lot more Peebuses in this season than there were in the last season too.
Did we actually see some dick? I was like,
yeah, there's some Beepus in there.
There's some Beepus. So yeah, this season's kind of divided up into 4 different stories. Because
you did mention how. Yes, it is a smaller story, but that's funny because it's like 4 stories at once. So, like the scope of it is surely smaller, but like there is like 4 different things going on, and related to like, I feel like everyone is that I've heard that finished the season is sharing the same sentiment. Like you guys were saying that it wasn't as strong as like the last 2 seasons, and in a way, I do agree, and that's not to say that I didn't enjoy the season. I enjoyed it very much, but this is absolutely like a setup season. Like when
for sure.
They haven't confirmed season 4, but I think it's like inevitable that they're going to do a season 4 just from how popular the damn show is, and to see where they go from like what they've set up here is going to be like very fascinating.
I mean, Hector and the Vampire Sisters plot line is all set up for something else.
Yeah,
that's all it is.
With all the games and stuff, isn't it like Dracula's back this time again?
Well, I think it's like he comes back every like 100 years or something. So when they're like they
almost got him back a whole damn month later here.
Yeah, because I was about to say like Sypha and Trevor's plot line, they're like in this town, and these monks or whatever are secretly trying to like resurrect Dracula with this interdimensional demon or something. Yeah, it's like he died a month ago, guys. Give him 100 years, he'll just come back on his own.
That's where it's like I kind of feel like the first couple seasons it kind of blew his load because that's kind of like the big thing that you want to see Dracula die, but now you got all the henchmen kind of working and doing their own thing, and kind of hoping Dracula comes back pretty soon because I don't really care about these characters.
I will kind of say I mean, I like the whole thing that's going on with Alucard. I like the whole thing that's going on with Trevor and Sypha. But when it comes to like the Forge Master guys and the Vampire Sisters, I'm not as into them as I was when they were like working with Dracula.
Like that's exactly how I feel.
Like, I will say, I think out of all the 4 storylines, I think Isaac's was the weakest.
Really? I actually felt like the bits with Isaac were actually, I think, my favorite parts of the season.
I think I say that only because I don't really feel like a lot happens, because he's basically going from place to place. The townspeople tell him to fuck off, and he gets pissed off. He kills a bunch of people, and then he ends up fighting a giant people sphere.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. If you're talking strictly on like development of like the storyline, sure, it's weakest in that respect. But I feel like the actual content of his segments were like very good. Like, just not even talking about like overall like all the fight scenes and stuff in the show, which are just like the first 2 seasons are incredible, especially like the last fight scene, like in from going from episode 9 to episode 10, and like the last shot of like Trevor killing that demon is like incredible. Anyway, so the Isaac stuff, I just felt like all the character like dialogue and stuff that he had, like I was really intrigued by all that, like the conversation that he had with the captain, the conversation he had with the fly monster, the conversation he had with the other with a witch. And stuff. Like I really dug which is like what I mentioned earlier about like Warren Ellis's writing in regards to like all the vulgarity and stuff and all of that. Like I'm sure he still has a lot of influence on the other writing in the show, like when it comes to that stuff, or like the conversation he had with the shopkeeper too. Yeah, it was all just like very well done to me. Actually, speaking of the captain, I didn't realize that, because we brought up that Bill Nye is on this season. The captain is voiced by Lance Reddick, and that was a pretty cool find too, because I didn't realize that was him until after the fact. But
yeah, this season had a couple voice quotey fingers, celebrity voice actors, because you got Lance Reddick and Bill Nye, but you also have Jason Isaacs, who's if I remember right, is the Malfoy's dad from Harry Potter, and a very well-known British actor. He's the town judge in Trevor's and Sypha's story.
Yeah, so boy, how about that reveal?
Okay, so I want to say up front, Trevor and Sypha's plot line is my favorite from the season. I like Trevor and Sypha's relationship. I like their whole thing with Saint Germain and the judge, and they're like investigating this corrupted church with all these monks trying to working with the demon. So I thought that was really cool. But Melody called the judge being fucked up because he talks to that kid and be like, hey, go to this tree out in the forest and you can get apples or whatever. The next scene he comes back and he's super sweaty. And she straight up said, he killed that kid.
Yeah, he sure did.
So and then when he so it kind of came a little more apparent to me when he tells the monk guy that killed him, and like, hey, go to this tree, and I'm like, oh, there's something fucked up with that tree. I thought the tree was going to be like alive and it's killing people. But yeah, it just turned, you think that the judge is like the stand-up guy and he just wants to protect his town, but nope, turns out he's a child murderer and he's stealing child shoes after he kills them.
Yeah.
That was kind of fucked up.
It was very fucked up.
Seems like anyone connected to Christianity or anything's gonna be a bad guy.
Yeah, it seems that way.
I mean, that's kind of what the monks were about, because they were like pissed off that the church was responsible for killing Dracula's wife, and that was kind of one of their big grievances. So yeah, it's kind of saying that like, hey, Christianity's kind of shit.
I was a little disappointed in the reveal that like he's been killing kids and stuff, just because the judge's character the whole season, he wasn't like an outright bad guy, obviously, like pretty much for the whole season. But the thing was, it wasn't like a black and white thing, because like clearly, like for the whole season, he was trying to do good, like with Trevor and Sypha and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But like he wasn't afraid of like it wasn't as like black and white as say the like the bishop and stuff like from the previous season, like how they're very clearly evil, but like the judge's whole thing was like he was doing good, but he was kind of like a gray character where like and they just sort of because I feel like what the thing with the kid and then like him like sweating and stuff, that was like probably what, episode 8.
Well, the kid, he does it like about halfway through the season, because what I didn't. Okay, so basically, this is how my thought process went.
Well, here's
I didn't. Go ahead.
I just wanted to say, like, was there a purpose?
I think the whole thing with making him a child murderer, I think, was unnecessary.
Yeah, like it just feels like they just threw it in there to sort of like, and that's what I'm saying. Like they kind of undermined their whole like he was like sort of like a gray character, and then like it just turns out, oh wait, no, he's actually been a fuck the whole time. Like,
well, because it was like I didn't think he like bore any ill will to that kid. I thought he was genuinely being nice and like, hey, go get some apples and stuff because I know you're hungry or whatever. So he's like, okay, he's being nice to that kid. And when he comes back sweaty, because you Trevor and Sypha go out to the tree to find that the monk has fallen into the pitfall. I thought that the reason he came back sweaty is because he was out digging that ditch to trap the monk, and then they're like, why are there tiny bones? And I'm like, oh god damn it.
Yeah.
What about, isn't he scolding the child before he tells him to go to the tree?
Well, yeah, he's scolding him, but I thought he was like having a moment where it was like, okay, I gotta discipline this kid for breaking the rules, but then he's like, he's just a kid, he doesn't mean it. So he's being nice to him because he is the town leader and stuff. So I thought he was just being nice, but nope, turns out he's a child murderer.
Yeah, well, so then part of me thought before we realized that, oh wait, no, those are all like kids' shoes, was that I thought it was kind of like a you guys have seen Hot Fuzz, right?
Yeah.
So I felt like it was kind of like that thing where like he was like probably killing like a bunch of townsfolk that were like breaking rules and stuff, so that he had like a perfect town. Or like close to it. I kind of felt like that was what they're trying to go for there, but no, he's just kind of like a creep. So
yeah,
I was more disappointed that the brother and sister turned out to be bad guys.
Yeah, that was another like last second development thing too. And
the
thing was that they're not even bad guys necessarily. It's just that they were. That was a whole fucking scenario.
Dude, I thought the whole thing, and I don't even know if they're brother and sister, but the two Japanese kids that come, first off, I think the relationship with Alucard was fucking creepy to begin with before the three-way happens.
I didn't think it was that. I mean, yes, once the three-way happened, yes, but before that, no, I thought it was. I don't know,
they're always hanging on him and like demanding things like, motherfuckers, you came to him. He doesn't owe you shit. So when they're like saying, "Hey, we're gonna kill you because you're holding out on us," and I'm like, again, he doesn't owe you anything.
But they had a fucked up childhood, so I assume that they didn't.
I don't give a shit.
I don't assume that they had much of a childhood to begin with, so they were pretty childlike in the way they acted.
Well, what I'm saying, I don't like a shitty childhood does not justify murder.
You try telling that to real life people.
I don't think it's right then either. You have a shitty childhood, you go to therapy. I don't care if it is the 1400s. Speaking of, I want to circle back on. I want to mention how modern Alucard's kitchen is compared to when it's supposed to take place in history.
I was kind of thinking the same thing.
How the fuck does he have a full-on oven and running water?
Oh, wait, no, this makes sense because fucking
they brought it up.
Yeah, but they've been they have fucking technology and science that nobody else is using because humans are fucking dipshits that don't believe in it.
They said humans are forgetful or something.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just when
or some dumb shit.
I don't know. I was just very taken very aback when he comes back from his harvest and he's just like has this fucking electric oven and a running sink, and I'm like, this seems very out of place for this point in history.
No, they literally they talked about like that's the whole point of like Lisa falling for Dracula. It was fucking he had all this science and all this technology that like the outside world wouldn't adopt. They all thought it was fucking witchcraft. So that makes sense that the castle would have like all those more modernized like gadgets and stuff.
I'm just an ignorant human.
Yeah.
And then we have Hector and Carmilla and all the Vampire Sisters storyline, which I'm not really sure how I feel about this one. Like, this is the most setup-y one because it's literally them coming up with the plan to enslave humans, and they don't enact it by the end of the season. So clearly, it's like setting up for something in the next season that they're going to try.
Basically, what it comes down to is Hector got too horny, and now he's a slave.
I mean,
and it happens. It happens.
Well, he's more of a pet now.
I mean, she refers to him like a dog, like the entire season. Like she always calls him a good boy and stuff, and like he gonna be. And then they literally put him on a leash to take him outside for walkies.
It's fucked up. It's fucked up.
You know, there's people that are into that though.
I know. She let her dog fuck her.
He's a fuck toy. That's all he is now. Who can make monsters? Yeah. So yeah. So for me, I think Trevor and Sypha's story was the strongest of these. Alucard's was kind of like a nice little distraction. If I thought like the whole ending of it was kind of unwarranted.
You know what? Okay, because you were talking about how Isaac's whole bit like probably had the least story progression.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if there's that much for Alucard's either.
I will agree, but I'm more attached to Alucard's character and kind of like his. I was more attracted to his story of like, you know, he's lonely. And then he has these two people that come to him like, hey, we need your help and, you know, be our teacher. So he's like, you know, it shows him right up front that he's like really lonely because Trevor and Sypha decided to go off on their own adventures. So he's just in the castle by himself. So, I mean, here comes these two people that want to like hang out with him. He's like, hell yeah, let's do it. I don't know. I kind of felt like his emotional struggle with all that was just a little more interesting. But I will agree that, yes, it has very little progression to the overall story.
Yeah, and like it's really just the Trevor and Sypha stuff that just progresses anything, because even the stuff with the Vampire Sisters and Hector and stuff like that didn't get that much done either. Like they're talking about like the plan and how it's going to go and stuff, but I mean nothing actually gets done.
Mm-hmm.
And again, because it's a setup season, you know, we don't get to see much of it happen. But like once the new season starts, because there will be one. It'll be great. It's going to be great to actually see it happen. But basically, the whole point of that thing was just like, how are they going to trick Hector into doing all this shit for them? And then that's pretty much what they spent the whole season doing.
Power of boners.
Yeah.
It was a beach season.
Kind of. I say that this was a setup season, but also kind of a breather season, because like the last two seasons have been like this giant overarching plot and, you know, worldwide cataclysm kind of stuff. And in this season, it's like, okay, we're gonna, you know, slow down for a minute, have these tiny little adventures, and then next season, once everyone's caught their breath, we're gonna come back to the big macro plot and deal with more like world-ending shit.
If you told me right now to tell you what happened in season 1 and season 2, I would not be able to. Be like, Dracula died. That's all I fucking remember.
I don't really remember a lot of specifics, but I remember that like, oh yeah, vampire or Dracula went to kill all the humans because they killed his wife, and there was a bunch of other vampires. There was like a big. I remember who Cartmilla is, and
that's
all that
what this season was missing, and I hate that they killed him off so early in season 2 because I fucking miss Godbrand so much. Godbrand was the best character, and I fucking miss Peter Stormare as fucking Godbrand. He was like the best. I wish he would have been in this season. Yeah, like, oh, it would have been so great. Like,
well, he did.
He is very dead, and I wish he wasn't.
Yeah.
He was like the best part of season 2.
Yeah. So I think overall, I like this season. I kind of agree with you, Kyle. That's not like, in the terms of like, big overarching story, it's not as strong, but I did like that, we got to kind of see all the characters kind of like going off on their own little individual stories for a little bit. And I'm suspecting that in a season 4, everyone's going to come back together. So we'll kind of get back to that big overarching plot again.
Yeah, because I'm definitely interested to see where they're going to go, because we know where the shit with Hector and Isaac are going. The Trevor and Sypha stuff, we're kind of left wondering like where they're going to go from there. Like they kind of just say like, for the last like month we've been, or Trevor says like, oh, for the last month we've been living like your fantasy, Sypha's fantasy of like, doing good and blah, blah, blah. And so now we're living not my fantasy, but now we're living my life where we're basically going to be hermits or something to that effect. But then
I kind of took that line in the sense that like they were living Sypha's fantasy where like they were like just kind of adventuring around, killing monsters, like you said, doing good and stuff. When I think that when he said, "Oh, we're living my life now,"
it's the outcome of what just happened.
The outcome? It's like it's misery, it's shit, it's depressing. I think that's more what he was referring to.
Yeah, for sure. So, but yeah, I want to see where they go from there. But then also the stuff with Alucard, because we're just kind of left to. I'm wondering if maybe even though he's killed the two there, if he might sort of still take up their thing and like go to Japan and stuff. Because I know that in the games he does end up in Japan at some point. So I'm not sure if that's something that they'll be relating to. But then also I want to see what the fuck's up with Saint Germain, because his whole thing with like what was it, universe hopping or something, like, or time hopping? I don't know.
Yeah, he's there's a thing called the Infinite Corridor. It's a door to like door to many worlds, and he's just trapped in there right now.
Yeah, and like who the fuck was it that like ended up there? Like I'm definitely intrigued by that. I want to see like where they go with that. If hopefully that's not something they just sort of leave alone. I do want to see what they were building towards with that.
Yeah, for sure. Kyle, you got anything else you want to say?
I think it would be fucking hilarious if it got canceled. Just with all this build up.
We're gonna get fucking confirmation that Castlevania season 4 is not happening, and that Big Mouth just got renewed for 2 more seasons.
I'll
Big Mouth.
Die laughing. I will die laughing, but yeah. I don't know, man.
All right then.
It sure was a thing.
It was a thing, and I don't know. I liked it. It was good. It a good season.
I feel like the end of season 2, they probably could have ended the series right there.
Oh, for sure.
I don't remember if there was anything that was left hanging at that point, but
not that I recall. Well, I mean, aside from the setup for where they're going to go with Isaac and Hector.
Right. Honestly, I do think that if they stopped at season 2 and then moved on to different protagonists and different Belmont or whatever, that would have been a good time to do it. But they've chosen to stick with the same characters, and I'm kind of interested to see how they're going to deviate further from traditional Castlevania lore and see what they do with it.
Yeah.
They made their bed, now they got to sleep in it.
Exactly.
They made their coffin, and they got to sleep upside down in it.
Alucard's got to get a coffin. He can't sleep.
Yeah.
He had a pretty nice bed to have a 3-way in.
Right? Damn.
Sex murder party.
He's all into bondage because he liked getting fucking wrapped up.
I don't think he liked it. He didn't look that way.
Gross. All right, guys, there you go. That's our take on Castlevania Season 3. Let us know in the comments what you thought of this season, or more the series as a whole. If you didn't listen to our discussion of Season 1 and 2. I think we're good on video game stuff for a little bit anyway. But next week we'll be talking about Pixar's Onward. I know that also came out this week, but we are more excited to talk about Castlevania, so we'll get to it eventually.
Here's my preview of my review. Yikes.
I think we could say that about most things, but all right, guys, thanks for listening, and we will catch you all next week.
See ya.
Thanks for listening to the Ink and Paint Club podcast. Be sure to follow us on Facebook and Twitter to keep up with the show. Join our Discord to chat with us, and subscribe to our Patreon for some cool bonuses. Links are in the description. We'll see you next time.